It's the end of the year show of the Fantasy G.O.A.T. Jason, it's sad. It's bittersweet, but we got a lot more fun in this last show of the season for you. The Fantasy G.O.A.T. starts right now.
This is the Fantasy G.O.A.T, sponsored by Casablanca Resort and Casino, like Vegas used to be.
Welcome to the Fantasy G.O.A.T. I'm Mike Davis. That's Jason Feinberg. Jason, no fantasy championships for us this year.
No, I got second place in 2 leagues. It was looking promising at first, and then everything went haywire. From losing both my fantasy football championships to thinking I had New Year's Eve and New Year's Day off, and then having to come into work at 4 in the morning and anchor the news. So everything kind of took a turn, including my 2 fantasy football championships.
It's a whole a big stew of disappointment for Jason Feinberg.
Yeah.
But in this end of the year show, we're going to start by doing a little something different. Okay, we're going to start with the end of the year superlatives. Did you have any superlatives as a high schooler growing up in California? Did you get any of those in your yearbook?
Yes, I got. I think I got best smile.
Really?
Which I was pretty proud of.
Let me see the smile.
There you go. There you go.
See, there you go. That's a good superlative.
So how about you?
I actually got a couple. I got best storyteller and funniest.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And it's a good. I wish I got best smile.
Yeah, to each his own.
But let's do fantasy football end of the year superlative. So let's start, of course, with MVP, and we're also going to have our producer James Edward Barrickman the fourth with us. James, did you get any superlatives in high school? I should ask you.
I did actually. School spirit, if you can believe
Wow.
that. Yeah, man. Go Jaguars. Thomas Jefferson High School back in Pittsburgh,
So
PA.
I wasn't most likely to eat a whole Promanti sandwich in 2 bites.
No, because that was half the graduating class.
But right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to be doing a little bit of a round robin here, similar to our Thanksgiving show. But let's start with MVP. So I'll kick us off. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's got to be Christian McCaffrey. He's got the second most points total in fantasy football this season, 357, just behind Josh Allen. This guy was the first, second, third pick in a lot of drafts, Jason. I know you had him.
Yeah.
The next running back with the most points after that, 255, Raheem Mostert. So he's almost got 100 more points than that person. The highest he scored all year was 45. The lowest, 11. 11, as a floor is pretty good.
Yeah, it's still fine.
And I think Christian McCaffrey has showed us why he's going to be the first pick in fantasy football next season as well. So that's my MVP.
Well, I had him in one of the 2 leagues where, I didn't win the championship. And part of the reason why was because he got injured in that last game and didn't put up the points I really needed him to. And for that, I can't go with most valuable player from a fantasy perspective because he wasn't valuable enough for me. The guy I went up against was what really put the nail in the coffin to my getting second place and not first, and that's wide receiver CeeDee Lamb from Dallas. Started off the season slow, which he's done in more than one season, but he comes on at the right time, and pretty much every week of the fantasy playoffs, he came through and he just annihilated me, and I lost all hope, and it took everything away.
This is the year he took the big jump, to an elite level wide receiver. And James, where are you at on the MVP conversation?
So my fantasy MVP for the year is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Finished wide receiver 2 on the year behind CeeDee Lamb, who you just talked about. He missed a game in the first round of the fantasy playoffs, or else he probably would have ended up as wide receiver 1. But he still led the league in receiving yards. His championship and semifinals performance were modest by Tyreek Hill standards, but I'm going to talk about his regular season performance, which is really what dragged a lot of teams to the fantasy playoffs in the first place. 8 100-yard games, 6 games with over 25 fantasy points. Like I said, almost single-handedly dragged a lot of teams just to the playoffs. He was a stud all year long on 21.44% of championship teams. He's my fantasy MVP for the year.
I love it. Yeah, I had him in the league, and he was a great stud to have on a lot of fantasy rosters. Now let's move on to league winner. All right, so league winner. I'll kick us off. Kyren Williams, running back out of Los Angeles. This guy, was getting drafted late or a pickup on waiver wires for a lot of teams, and we saw having a guy who's a bona fide talent who's basically producing like a first round or a second round pick, but you get him off the waiver wire, it's a big deal for a lot of teams. And, you know, the highest he scored all year, 35. The lowest was 6.7. And he missed 4 games with an injury. He still had 239 points. And like Jason, you know, like you said, he was coming on well late as well. He had about 30 points in that last week for a lot of teams in the championship. So to me, Kyron Williams, that was a guy, if you had him on your team, you were lucky, and you were probably in the championship.
Yeah, and my league winner, it was also chosen in the mid rounds, and I got to go. Even though he didn't play in the championship week, Amari Cooper, man. You bring in Joe Flacco, and by the way, Amari Cooper had some pretty good scores throughout the year with other quarterbacks, but he really excelled when Joe Flacco came on board. And like I said, even though he didn't play in that championship week, the week before, he catapulted a lot of teams that if he didn't have the game that he had, they wouldn't have even made it to the championship game. And a lot of those teams were able to plug in somebody for him just to squeak by and win the championship. So for that, I think Amari Cooper is the league winner.
All right, and in proper form, James Edward Barrickman IV. I mean, your dude, the guy that you've been riding all year long. Who is your guy for the league winner?
My league winner, as you mentioned, is a guy I've been talking about on this show all year long. Raheem Mostert finished his RB2 behind McCaffrey. I'm listing him as a league winner because of where he was drafted.
Right.
7th, 8th round, not even a top 100 consensus player pre-draft, and I never really understood why. He was the starter in an elite Miami offense. Achane was there, but unfortunately injuries kind of kept him from overtaking that job. Mostert ends up breaking the Miami single-season touchdown record, is going to lead all running backs or all players in rushing touchdowns. And this is all from a guy you could have gotten in the 7th and 8th round in your draft. So salute Raheem Mostert on what's been a heck of a year for him.
I think it wasn't his talent, James. I think it was because everybody was worried he was going to get hurt, and that's why I think his value went down. But a lot of guys that we thought were going to get hurt wound up making it through the whole season. Christian McCaffrey almost did, and there's a few others in there that surprisingly lasted.
Injury is such a major factor when it comes to fantasy football. Now let's move on to bust to round out this end of the year superlatives right now for the GOAT. So I'm going to start right here. To me, there's 2 guys we got to talk about. You know, one of these guys is Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious how awful of a season this guy had. He started off really well in week 1, had 24 points, but then he gets that ankle injury and misses 3 games. They have a bye game as well. So after those 4 games, he comes back and he's not the same dude. And the Los Angeles, the Bolts, the team just doesn't look the same. Wow. He never got back to that high of 24. He hit 20 points only one more time the rest of the year. His lowest was 3.5 he scored. So to me, if you were drafting him that early and you swing and you miss, it's a shame for a guy like Austin Eckler.
I convinced a friend of ours who's Katie, in our league. She was playing for 3rd place, which is money.
Right.
And I convinced her to bench Eckler and play Singletary. And I forgot the other running back, but those 2 running backs got more points than Eckler, and it got her the 3rd place.
Yeah. Eckler really has to be the standout bust. The only other guy I do want to mention real quick is Tony Pollard, just because of where he was being drafted and what people thought about him, especially with Zeke Elliott out of the mix in that running back committee. So, I mean, this was a guy who was going kind of late 1st round, early 2nd. People were thinking, he was going to be the standout dude. He was on the cover of Fantasy Football magazine, Tony Pollard, this year. And he just had his highest point total in week 1, 21 points. He never got back to that again. He had 8 games under 10 points. He only had 2 top 10 finishes in fantasy football when it comes to running back. So to have 2 of those guys on your team and to put that draft capital into the first 2 rounds and to get them and swing and miss, it's a killer.
Well, and my bust was drafted right around the same place as Tony Pollard. In fact, he was gaining so much momentum because of Aaron Rodgers. He went from early second round to middle of the first round with all that momentum and excitement. And of course, I'm talking about Garrett Wilson with New York. And I drafted him in as many leagues as I possibly could if I was in the right draft position. And it bit me. Not one league that I had Garrett Wilson did I make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. It was the fact that we all were banking on the 1-2 punch with Aaron Rodgers. That didn't happen. And I think he had maybe 2 touchdowns.
And you can't blame yourself for that because, I mean, we saw the impact that Rodgers had with guys for many years, from Devontae Adams to Jordy Nelson. I mean, Jordy Nelson was a tremendous fantasy football standout, and just having that arm and that, gravitas from a guy who's a top 10 quarterback all time and Aaron Rodgers, he
made Robert Tonyan look like a Hall of Famer. And look what happened to that guy.
Exactly.
He couldn't even catch a ball wide open the other day.
It's true. James, round us out here with bust.
So this one hurts me being a Pittsburgh guy. Najee Harris is my bust of the year. He finished as RB26 after being a pretty highly touted prospect. I think he was going around RB9, late first, early second. There was a lot of hype around that Pittsburgh offense. The O-line was supposed to figure it out. Kenny Pickett was supposed to take a step forward, and none of that really happened. The offense was horrific for a lot of the year, and Najee Harris paid for it. Ends up splitting carries with Jaylen Warren, who came on this season really strong and not really getting the volume because he's splitting those carries. A pretty disappointing season for Najee from a fantasy perspective, although he did play really well in the semis and the championship round, but he's my fantasy bust.
See, I don't agree, just because I think people had a negative outlook on Najee and weren't feeling solid about him coming into the year. But yeah, I mean, he didn't perform the way that we wanted or hoped, but I don't think there was the same amount of enthusiasm surrounding him entering the season as there were for guys like, Pollard and Eckler.
Najee was the one that knocked me out of one of my 2 championship games.
Really?
Yeah, on that touchdown where it looked like he almost didn't make it, but he did, and that was the difference.
Hey, the whole season it was like, who's going to get into the end zone? Who's crossing that white line? Is it going to be Warren or is it going to be Najee Harris?
Yeah.
Guys, coming up after a short break, we're going to be doing something special. We're going to be looking ahead to next year, the guys who we're looking to avoid and the guys we're looking to target. That's coming up after a short break. All right, welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. All right, so we're going to be looking ahead to next year. You always love to do that, especially when you don't win your league. Let's talk about the guys we're going to target in 2024. So for me, that's the rookie wide receiver from Boston College, has really come on strong with this Baltimore team, Zay Flowers. He's the guy that Lamar Jackson is targeting. I think a lot of people were thinking he was going to be doing a lot of this stuff earlier in the season, but we've seen with Mark Andrews out, with Odell kind of dwindling. Zay Flowers has been the guy, and I think the way this team and this offense with Todd Monken is really working, I think Zay Flowers is a great target for next year.
Yeah, it was really fun watching him the last couple of weeks maneuver his way into the end zone. It was like almost like you're in arcade, you have the joystick, and you're like making quick turns and everything and avoiding the tackles. So
he's fast, fun to watch. And usually it's that second season when these wide receivers start to pop after the rookie year. That's when they take it to the next level.
Right. So I'm kind of going, I'm on the same wavelength as you, because I'm going with the rookie wide receiver, Puka Nacua. Loved him all season long. I was able to pick him up off the waiver wire in any league where he wasn't drafted already. I know in my high stakes league he was gone, because those are the types of players that have the insight and know. But Puka Nacua, it's like every time I'm watching LA play, all I'm looking for is the back of the jersey and hoping it's 17. And it usually is. Cooper Kupp definitely took a step back, and that's where Puka came through. And I think if you think about it, Cooper Kupp is only getting older, whereas Puka is going to be the new hot item in LA. And you know what? You could probably throw Tutu in there as well. Plus, it's fun to say Tutu and Puka.
Exactly.
So,
they go together well.
Right.
What about you, James? I like where your head's at here.
So yeah, I'm with you guys on the whole rookie side of things. Mine is Ty J. Spears. I think he's going to be a really popular name on a lot of draft boards next year. He's a rookie out of Tulane who's been sitting behind Derrick Henry in Tennessee all season long. Started to get more and more carries as that season went on. And with Derrick Henry, he's a free agent at the end of the year. It should be Ty J. Spears' backfield all of next year. Mike Vrabel loves to run the football. He has some fresh legs with Tyjae Spears. I'll be pretty high on him draft day next season.
Cool.
I bet King Henry's going to be in Baltimore, and
Yeah, he's on he's on the other half of the other side of the career.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and the guys we're looking to avoid next year, for me, it's Stephon Diggs. He was wide receiver 11 this season, 208 points, highest point total this year was 33 in a week, lowest 4.4. But over the last 7 weeks, let's take a look at just his numbers. 4.9, 4.7, 16.4, 4.4, 6.8, 5.4, and 5.1. It's a bad stretch for a guy who is being drafted in that first round. And I just think it's almost like you don't want to buy into the bet of Stephon Diggs a year too late. It's kind of like the Austin Eckler thing. I felt that way about Austin Eckler heading into the season. Last season he was the number 1 running back. I just felt maybe it's a little too much to keep going back to that well, and that's how I feel about Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I didn't see too many championship teams or semifinal teams that had Diggs in it.
Yeah.
And actually kind of goes true for my pick too of guys to avoid. Unless Taylor Swift writes a really nasty song about him, because that will motivate him. But yeah, Travis Kelce took him way too early. Always kind of tough to take a tight end in the first round. But I went there in one league, and it bit me. Overall, not bad numbers for a tight end, but for Travis Kelce, really low.
Yeah. And James, where are you at on this?
So, as you had mentioned earlier, Austin Eckler is a guy that I am avoiding like the plague next year. I'm not sure where he's going to be because he's also a free agent. At age 29, he's kind of ancient in running back years, and I can't see LA bringing him back. It'll be a new regime, new head coach, new GM. He's going to be expensive. And this year, we kind of started to see him show his age a little bit. He missed a few games early in the season and just wasn't really as effective as he had been in previous years. Finished his RB29. I think you're going to see him get the Dalvin Cook treatment, where he kind of goes to another team in a lesser role and kind of is irrelevant when it comes to fantasy purposes. Don't know where he's going to be next year, but I doubt it's LA. I'm staying away from Austin Eckler next season.
Yeah, it's funny. Now that I remember the other running back I was mentioning, I told Katie to not play Eckler and to play Singletary. And the other one was Zeke. Isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
That we were playing Zeke over Eckler, and it won her the third place.
It's crazy. I don't think his regression, it's hard to decipher how much of it is him and how much of it is the situation with the Bolts. But, we'll see where he ends up next season. Coming up after a short break, we got a lot of fun to show you, and a lot of that fun is coming at my own cost, I would have to say. We got that coming on after a break. Well, beyond just not winning any of my leagues, I also lost 2 bets pertinent to this show. I lost the Devon Achane bet and Raheem Mostert with our producer, James Edward Barrickman IV. That entailed me having to take a doll out to a diner. And then the whole diner situation was me losing our GOAT lineup record and coming up on the bottom end on that. And that wasn't a great look either. That's me trying to have to eat 24 pancakes in a diner. So coming up, you're going to be seeing exclusive video of this whole debacle going down. You don't want to miss it. It's me, it's Teddy Bear Crystal, and it's a lot of pancakes. All right, welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. It's the time we've all been waiting for. It's my punishment, Jason, for losing to you, for losing to James. This is me at a diner with Teddy Bear Crystal attempting to eat 24 pancakes. Let's take a look. Let's get this punishment over with.
Here we go.
Table for 3. I lost lost twofold. Lost when it comes to one-on-one GOAT lineup with Jason, so that means I have to lock myself in a diner and eat pancakes. Oh, you don't want that? Okay. You know what? Crispy chicken bacon ranch wrap. Yeah, sweet potato fries. That's her favorite. Now that is what I call pancakes.
Right.
Thank you. I'm a man of my word. Crystal knows that better than anybody, right, Crystal? Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, Crystal.
Oh my God. The eating of pancakes and forcing it, or the PDA that Crystal is. It kind of feels nice. Oh God. Well, the time is now. You must feel like many kings and queens have felt in the past. Jason, your posture looks beautiful. Producer James Edward Barrickman IV is coming in. It's actually apropos to have a fourth presenting you with the trophy. So this is a hat,
Right.
a Viking hat,
Which
kind of has a goat type of feel.
Which makes sense
It's a crown.
because, if I remember correctly, Justin Jefferson really put the dagger in you.
Yes.
When that week he played.
That was a big. So there you go, and then goat milk. Show it to the camera real quick. Show. Oh, it's luscious. It's majestic. How does it taste on your lips?
I like it.
Is it actually?
It's pretty good. Yeah.
What does it taste like?
Better, a little bit sweeter than regular milk.
Really?
I kind of like it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, very nice. It's worth. You're gonna love it one of these days.
I'm not even sure if I want to win anymore. Guys, can't wait to see you till next year. Thanks for joining us all season long. We'll see you next time on the Fantasy Go.